What is up, guys? John Collins, Risen Holster Co. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to continue on with our Making Your Holster series. I got a little bit different one for you guys today. We're going to be doing the Canik MC9 Prime TLR-7 sub, and we have a brand new mold that just came in. So we're going to walk you through the process of what it looks like to prep one of these guys before we use it to actually make a holster. So stick around. All right, so the first thing we do to prep this thing before we do anything else is we clean it off. So between getting shipped and the process of having these things made, they have a lot of dust and debris and kind of like a film over top of them that prevents any kind of tape or anything from sticking to them. So you didn't see it, I did it before I started filming, but the first thing you're gonna wanna do is take some hot water and some soap and give this thing a good scrub. Get it all good and clean before we move to the next step, which is coming over here to the drill press. Now, in order for this thing to actually work when we're vacuum forming over top of it, we need to be able to get air to pass through it. And to do that, we have to drill holes in it. So I have a very, very small drill bit, not sure the exact size, maybe like a 1/16 or something like that. And I'm gonna go around the perimeter of the outside of our holster here, the section of it that we actually wanna form around the gun. And we're gonna drill holes so that air can pass through. We're also gonna pay close attention to where our controls are at. Any really steep areas where we wanna get good definition, we'll drill a hole there. And then especially around our retention points around the light. So you watch me do that, and then I'll take you back over to the mock-up table and we'll show you how we tape this thing up. All right, so the next step in the process of what I'm going to do is take this little Allen key and I go back and push any of the debris that might still be stuck inside of these holes. A lot of times it'll have a tendency to get bunched up in there, and air alone will not blow the debris out. So it's just easier to take this little Allen key, fits into these holes perfectly, and make sure all this debris comes out. All right, now we are drilled out, everything's dusted back off and clean, and we are ready to start laying this thing out. So the first thing I like to do is take our mod wing, keep one of these things broken down, but we have our two retention points here on the side. So I like to set this on there just so I can get an idea once this is attached where this is going to stop. Then like take the mock-up of our firearm and our light. We're going to stick that on here exactly how it would sit, and I can get an idea right here where the bottom of our trigger guard is going to be, so that I can make sure when we put our attachments on that we're going to have enough of a handhold to get our fingers in and around the grip of the firearm here. So you can kind of see the slight difference there between the bottom of where we want this holster to be cut to the top of the mod wing. This is good. We don't want it to be overlapping the other direction. That means this mod wing would be sitting up too high and our hand would catch it as we're trying to grip our firearm. So usually get that on there. From that point, we can go ahead and get our blocking out. So our little piece here for our monoblock. And then we're going to center that up, but also keep it just above where this line is here. Purpose for that is I don't want this directly on the line. This is going to then put the holster sitting up a little bit too high in our pants, and just the higher it sits up, the harder it can be to conceal. Especially with some of these shorter guns, it's nicer to have them set down just a little bit lower. It aids in that whole keel principle and helps the top of the gun tilt back in towards our bodies. So I opt to go just a hair bit higher than what it calls for there. Which about right there is good. And then we just want to make sure it's centered up between the trigger guard and the top of the slide here. So once I get that, I'll then go back and outline this. And that is going to show me exactly where I need this to be for the rest of our blocking. Now this is, I believe, for a appendix holster. Yes, this is our Ninja light bearing appendix. So the next pieces of blocking that are needed are going to be for our tuckable clips. So grab a few of these out of here. Make sure we have the right thickness. And what we're going to do is set these on and then take one of our clips and try to space this thing out on here to make sure that it's sitting in the right spot. And so where we want this to be is this top edge here, where this is going to rest on our belt, to be perfectly in line with where this is sitting at. So that basically once the monoblock clip or this is used, the ride height stays the same between the two. Then you can adjust this up and down as you need for whatever fit you're going for, but it lists in the stock position, and the monoblock in the stock position will be sitting at the same height. So set that. Looks like it needs to go just a hair bit higher. It's like somewhere about right there. Push it over a little bit further to the side. And then I'll usually just mark the top and the side of it here, so I know exactly where that needs to sit. And then usually it takes 2 of these things with this size of gun. So we'll put these over here on the other side. Make sure they're spaced out about evenly, and then that the height is the same. And we will mark these ones. All right, so I'm gonna go back and finish blocking this, taping it up, and I'll jump ahead so that you guys can see what that looks like. And boom, there you go. Everything is all taped up. So you can see we got an even height across here. These are gonna line up with where the monoblock needs to go. And we are now ready to vacuum form this thing. So let's go over to the table. All right, so here's our mold on the vac table. I've already blown this off with some air. Also blew off the Kydex before I stuck it in the press. It's warming up. That is one thing that I would say for anybody making holsters that is extremely crucial when you're making them is dust control, especially working in a shop, especially if you're working in a tight area. The dust that these things put off after you've made a couple thousand of them is pretty ridiculous. So make sure you are doing your best to keep the dust down and keep all that debris from getting into the Kydex. If there was dust and debris on this, that Kydex comes out so hot and pliable that when it gets vacuum formed or pressed or however it is that you form it, all that dust actually gets almost infused up inside of the Kydex, and it is almost impossible to get back out again. So definitely something to keep in mind. Alrighty, so now we have it cut out and it is time to fold it. So set this here to warm up, and while that is getting warm, I went ahead and took the glue gun that we use, the molding jig, and put our tape on it. It's going to give that a little extra bit of padding so that if there's any kind of like a Cerakote finish on the slide aftermarket, or just in general to help with any excess friction here. We only want this holster to be grabbing onto the light, not necessarily onto the slide or anything like that. So that's why we pad these out. Let this get a little bit warmer. Make sure it is good and pliable in the middle. That right there. Fold this thing up, get some clamp onto the light, make sure things are straight and where they need to be, and get a clamp, steal one off of another one of these here, onto the slide and frame section. Make sure that our sight channel is lined up like where we want it. Seems to be good to go. All right, let that cool off, and then we'll take it back over to the other table. Alrighty, so next step is to decide what this final shape is going to be here. So we're going to set that up so that the light on the holster and the light on the firearm are the same. Just want to make sure that any of the other clearances are good. I'm going to mark the back of the slide here, and we're going to mark where this trigger guard comes down. There we go. And then I need to check really fast to make sure what this customer wanted for a sweat shield. So we're going to go with a mid sweat shield on this one. So that's as simple as connecting the dots here, like so. And then we have full sweat shield would be all the way to the back of the slide. Mid sweat shield is right here. And then if you were to order a low sweat shield, that's going to come down another increment here. So anybody that's looking at ordering holsters and you're wondering about that question as far as the sweat shield heights, that's what we are talking about here. For inside the waistband carry, my personal preference is at least a mid, if not a full. I find especially on light bearing holsters where you're going to have this gap and a little bit of a channel because of the light needing to get in, that low sweat shields, I have a little bit more of a stomach, and sometimes the skin will get in between the holster and the light, or the holster and the firearm, and create pinch points. Whereas if it is up higher and can sit a little bit tighter against the back of the slide, it's a bit more comfortable that way. So to each their own. Everybody has their own reasons for it. If you're somebody that has a reason to wear the holster without the firearm in it, and you're gonna have less of a sticking point at that point. If the firearm is out, then this little bit of the back of the slide is going to want to stick you in the stomach, versus having the lower sweat shield. If you happen to not have the firearm in there, you might find it more comfortable that way. So depends on your use case, depends on what you're going for, but that is why that is. So mark for the mod wing. Now this one, the customer is not asking for a mod wing. They were wanting the mini concealment wing, but we always mark it for the mod wing anyway. So down the road, he decides he wants to take this mini wing off and switch over to a mod wing. Just gives it a nicer looking profile with the bottom of the holster. Make sure that it has clearance for all that. So we're gonna go ahead and bring this across and up. Connect those. And then this looks like it's going to be just a little bit high, especially in comparison to where this is sitting. So we're going to drop that down just a hair, something like that. There we go. Now back over to the bandsaw to cut this out. All right, so I'm going to cut it out to final shape as we typically do. This is going to be a cut, a sand, a buff, any extra Dremel work and all that stuff. I'm just going to zoom through that, and then I'll see you guys back over at the table and we will get this thing assembled. Here we go. Went ahead and branded it. Also went ahead and drilled out for the mini wing, which is right here. So this customer is going with the mini wing, also going with a monoblock clip. So we'll go ahead and take a pass-through post, set the mini wing on top of it, and then a finish washer. And then use some of these longer screws for the wing itself. You want to make sure that there is enough sticking through the back here that we can catch our slotted post on the other side. So we'll do that one. Do this one. Get these started. And then we're going to take these slotted posts and the retention washers and get those put in place. A total of 4 of those. Looks like I am short. There we go. So next we're going to Flip this over to a flat blade and get these started. Come on. What is going on here? There we go. It's always best to just barely get these things started, a thread or two, and then go from there. Otherwise they get to be a pretty big pain in the butt to start. Alright, flip this back. A couple more finish washers. And a couple more screws. Alright, and test fit this. Yep. A little bit loose, not too bad. Especially once you're wearing this in the appendix position like it's made for, it's going to add a little bit of extra pressure. But take a flat blade screwdriver so we can kind of be a little more precise with these. Forgive all the sniffling, I am fighting a little bit of a head cold right now. Yeah, much better. Just going to keep it from shaking out. Obviously this is not as heavy as the real gun is going to be, but especially once you add the pressure of a belt on top of this, this is going to be probably actually a little bit too tight, but I'll let him make that call. It feels really nice as it is right now, but once you add the belt pressure, that might be just a hair too much, but definitely has plenty range of motion in being able to go tighter and or looser, so good fit there. That'll give him all of the retention adjustability he could need. Throw our monoblock clip. Need a couple more finish washers and a couple more screws. Nice feature I've noticed since putting these together is these Caniks have kind of a tilted slide portion here at the top. You can see where that's not flat. It kind of curves over. So when you stick the blocking on that, it kind of gives that a bit of a curve too. So if you ever were to switch these over to the tuckable style clips, it's going to allow this to kind of go in the curvature of the front of your body. It allows the clips to fit a lot better. Sometimes if you're dealing with something like a Glock or something like that that's got the flat-faced side on the front, then when these go on, they're just, you know, they're straight, which is fine. It works great, but it is nice to have a little bit of curvature to them. So this is going to be a good holster. All it needs now is to be cleaned up, shipped out, and enjoyed. So thank you guys for sticking around. Thank you for watching the video. If you haven't liked and subscribed, please do so. And we'll see you on the next one. God bless.